Everyone, good morning everyone. Good to have you this morning joining us via our live stream. I want to begin, as I have been, by thanking Todd Milne for getting us started during our service with his extraordinary talent and his recorded music. So Todd, as always, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Also want to welcome Michelina Tyree, who's on our piano. Our church pianist is back with us, and our music director, Deb Jackman, is here, going to lead us in some singing a little bit later. And also to Dick Still, who is not only our board president, but also is going to be lay leading with us. And we're so glad to have you for this is your first time today. We're going to expect you to get it absolutely perfect, just like your presidency. No pressure. I'm kidding on both counts. So we're all pretty loose around here. But anyway, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here. Yep. And we do not have our slideshow today. We have two volunteers who are going to be doing that for us, but one of them is out of town and the other is recovering from a minor medical procedure. So hopefully we'll be able to get those back in another week or two, but until then, we're going to do it by memory. But Deb has a song I think we'll all know just about by heart. So let's see. Yeah, so I don't have any other announcements, but I should say, as I like to each Sunday, to remind us why we're here and what we're doing, that our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to find meaning, create community. I got it backwards, didn't I? Dick, take it away, my friend. Create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Good. I'm glad you were here to bail me out. Thank you. It's the one part of my script I don't actually write down because I know it by heart. Ha! But anyway, I do know enough to remind you, as always, that I welcome all that you bring with you today, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. So thanks to one and all for being here. Now, as usual, let's begin by taking a few moments to greet one another. Use your cell phone, your email, a quick phone call, whatever it might be, to reach out to somebody that you're thinking of this morning. Thank you, Michelina, for your melodic talent carrying us through that period of greeting one another. It's always so great to hear you. Yeah. And I hope that, as always, you will continue to take time to greet one another, whether it's immediately following our service or throughout the week. It is such a help, as all of you know, in this time of extended isolation from one another, that we do our best to stay in touch. So it's really meaningful to do so in whatever ways that you can. For now, we are going to move forward by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith. It is a symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
My opening reflection and other readings today come from theoretical physicists, the discipline of my undergraduate major. These are the words of Michio Kaku. However blessed we are by fate with different abilities and strengths, we should try to develop them to the fullest, rather than allow them to atrophy and decay. We all know individuals who did not fulfill the promise they showed in childhood. Many of them became haunted by the image of what they might have become. Instead of blaming fate, I think we should accept ourselves as we are and try to fulfill whatever dreams are within our capability. Second, we should try to leave the world a better place than when we entered it. As individuals, we can make a difference, whether it is to probe the secrets of nature, to clean up the environment and work for peace and social justice, or to nurture the inquisitive, vibrant spirit of the young by being a mentor and a guide.
Thank you so much, Dick. I don't think most people would have ascribed those words to a physicist, but it is really, they really are beautiful sentiments to begin our service with today. We are now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds, and if you have some candles at home you'd like to light along with us, you may, of course. But Dick is going to kindle the candles that we have here in our sanctuary as well. And I want to begin today with a candle for our dear friend Ed Tyler, who is now under hospice care after many years of living and coping with cancer. Please keep Ed and Patty and Susan and Dean and just their entire family in your thoughts at this difficult time. We also kindle a candle for Joanne Bailey, whose son Bill passed away last week after his bout with cancer. Please keep Joanne, Jan, and their entire family in your thoughts and hearts as well. And we kindle a candle for Graham Taylor, who, on top of many other health issues he's recently been diagnosed with COVID-19. And a candle for Tanya and Kurt Workmaster. Tanya's unable to travel due to some of her own health issues, but her mother, who lives in Lake Charles, Louisiana, had her home destroyed by Hurricane Laura, and she's thinking a lot of her and unable to actually be there to help. So a candle for her entire family and her mom as well. And on a wonderful note, a candle of celebration for the birth of Jude Larry Snyder. Jude is the son of Caitlin and Eli Snyder. Jude was born on August 20th, and everybody's doing well. So welcome to Jude, and congratulations to Eli and Caitlin. Let's take a moment of silence now on behalf of others that you might be thinking of. And wherever you're at, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. We are now going to have our story for all ages. So everyone who is of any age, gather round, and I'm going to invite a special guest to help me out. Oh, looks like a somewhat familiar face. Look who's here. If it's not our old friend, Texas Jack, great to see you, Jack. Well, you're a sight for sore eyes, son, even if I do have a achy-drakey heart. Well, you do seem a little down in the dumps. What's wrong? Well, I've been going through a bit of a rough patch lately. I see. Well, are you having trouble with Mrs. Jack, maybe? Shucks, no. I'm too ornery to nary, son. I make a hornet look cuddly. I see. Well, aren't you feeling well? Oh, I'm better than biscuits and gravy. I see. Well, are you upset maybe with all that's going on in the world these days? Well, I'm madder than a wet hen, son, but that ain't it. Well, I'm afraid I don't understand. You said you're going through a bit of a rough patch, but you seem to be doing okay. That's 'cause I've been through a real rough patch, son, with thorns and thistles. Oh, I sometimes forget that you're actually a rabbit who travels through briar patches sometimes. Sometimes you're as thick as fog, son, but that's why I like you. Well, thank you. I like you too, Jack. And I'm glad the only rough patch you're going through is a thicket in the woods. Well, don't start shooting out the lights just yet. Shooting out the lights. You mean don't start celebrating. So what is it that brings you to Spokane this morning? I'm looking for work. Oh, well, I see. Well, aren't you happy with your old job? Lately, it's left a hole in my life. I see. Well, what kind of work is it that you've been doing? Digging holes. Well, that kind of makes sense then. Well, what is it you'd rather be doing? Well, that's just it, son. I got an ox in a ditch. You got your ox in a ditch. You mean you're feeling stuck and you have no idea what you want to do. Would you please quit repeating everything I say? Well, I'm sorry, but you know, it just so happens that I'm going to be talking about the importance of having meaning in our lives in a few minutes later this morning. Well, that sounds about as exciting as a mashed potato sandwich. Well, I just mean that whatever you do next, it should be something meaningful, something that's something that'll keep me dizzier than twin hounds in flea season. Well, not exactly. Meaningful work isn't just busy work, or you might as well just be digging holes. Well, quit hollering down a well then and get to the point. Well, what I mean is whether it's a job or a hobby or something else you do, life is always going to feel a little bit empty if we don't do something that fulfills us, that makes us happy doing it. Well, now your kettle's starting to boil, son. Well, thank you, I think. Well, I've been jawing enough. I guess I'd better hop to it. Well, good luck with whatever you end up doing next, Jack. I think I might take up growing carrots. That is legal here in Washington, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is, Jack. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
For today's meditation, I invite you into a state of repose. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes if you like, and breathe slowly, deeply, and mindfully. Our task must be to free ourselves by widening the circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. Albert Einstein.
Thanks again, Dick, for that thoughtful preamble to our meditation. My reading today comes from the back, is an anonymous reading from the back of our gray hymnal, and I can't necessarily draw a direct line from it to my sermon in a few minutes, but when I was looking for an appropriate reading this morning, this one seemed to actually work. Because perhaps the barriers that I'm about to read are the same barriers that sometimes prevent us from achieving meaning and purpose in our lives. It's called to risk. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing our true self. To place our ideas, our dreams before the crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. Thank you so much, Michelina. That was just beautiful. Michelina's music speaks for itself, but she often shares the lyrics with me to what she's playing so that I understand the sentiments behind the music. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read just a few so you understand perhaps the heart behind what you just probably felt. The song is "Take These Wings." I found a sparrow lying on the ground. Her life I knew would soon be at an end. I knelt before her as she made a sound and listened as she said, "My friend, take these wings and learn to fly to the highest mountain in the sky. Take these eyes and learn to see all those things so dear to me. Take this song and learn to sing. Fill your voice with all the joys of spring. Take this heart and set it free. Let it fly beyond the sea." Beautiful, thank you. The title of my message this morning is "The Basis of Meaning. What is Yours?" Continuing our Perennial Problems Summer Series. There's a sketch in Monty Python's 1983 movie, The Meaning of Life, that begins when a couple of doctors are informed that a patient's contractions have increased. "Good. Take her into the fetus frightening room," one of them responds. Upon entering, they complain the room is a bit bare and instruct the nurse to bring in some machines, including the machine that goes bing and the most expensive machine in case the administrator comes. Nobody knows what any of these machines are for, but within seconds, the delivery room looks jolly good. Yet something still seems to be missing. Oh yes, they realize, the patient. Once they finally find her obscured behind all the equipment, they reassure her there's nothing to worry about. We'll soon have you cured. Leave it all to us. You'll never know what hit you. After dismissing her husband, explaining only people involved are allowed in here, the patient asks, "What do I do?" "Nothing, dear. You're not qualified," the doctors say. "Leave it to us." "What's that for?" she asks. "That's the machine that goes bing." The administrator enters, dressed in a tuxedo, and asks what kind of procedure they're doing. "It's a birth," they say. "And what sort of thing is that?" he asks. "That's when we take a new baby out of a lady's tummy." "Wonderful what we can do nowadays," the administrator beams. Bing! "Ah, I see you have that machine that goes bing," he says. After he leaves, they very quickly deliver the baby, cut the umbilical cord with a meat cleaver, flash it before the mother, then, as the doctor instructs, isolate it in an incubation cage. When mom asks if it's a boy or girl, the doctor responds, "I think it's a little early to start imposing roles on it, don't you?" He then goes on to explain she may soon be experiencing irrational bouts of depression, so it's lots of happy pills for you, and you can find out all about the birth when you get home. It's available on Betamax, VHS, and Super 8. Bing! So the meaning of life seems a good place to begin considering today's topic, the meaning of life, especially given the cluelessness the Monty Python troupe demonstrates about something so essential to life as birth. The doctors don't know what all the medical equipment is for. The administrator doesn't know what a birth is. The mother doesn't know what she's supposed to do. And the newborn infant begins life in isolation from everything, where it's likely to become just as clueless as everyone else. Bing! Having meaning in our lives is essential to our happiness, to that which the Greeks called eudaimonia, which, as you've heard me say often by now, most literally translates good spirit, or though what we might translate as good cheer, being cheerful. But as I more recently learned, a more accurate translation is to flourish. To have meaning is to flourish. And a life that isn't flourishing or striving to flourish at any age is a life without meaning. Since Socrates, the whole point of philosophy, according to many philosophers, is to discover what it takes to have a life worth living, a meaningful life, to flourish, eudaimonia. Yet how many of us instead are like the bumbling doctors, the clueless dependent patient, and the isolated infant in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life? How many of us have ever considered the meaning of our own life and its purpose? How many of us have examined ourselves enough to lead the life worth living? The basis of meaning, what is yours? Is it something you've given much thought to during your life? Is it something that's remained the same throughout your life? Has it evolved or changed over time? Are you still trying to figure it out? Of course, the cynical existentialist among us may claim that our lives can have no specific meaning since there is no such thing as fate to begin with, since God is dead, hell is other people, and life is absurd. But by meaning, I'm not talking fatalistically or deterministically. I'm not implying we each necessarily come into this world with a preordained purpose or some overarching genetic quality that drives us, though I'm not denying these possibilities either. But existentialism can just as easily be interpreted in a way that liberates us from the notions of fate, destiny, and genetics to determine meaning for ourselves. And that's actually the whole point of existentialism, that without meaning we experience existential angst, in the recognition there is nothing determinant in our lives. In metaphysics, or if metaphysics is the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature of existence itself, existentialism is the philosophical idea concerned about the nature of our own individual existence. It began in the 18th century after humanity started emerging from the Dark Ages, after the Renaissance had began, and became increasingly free from theological beliefs, which is why Nietzsche recognized that for all practical purposes, God is dead. At the same time, industrialization transformed us into mindless cogs in a machine in which our work often became meaningful to everyone but ourselves. As a result, there was an increasing sense of meaninglessness because everything is left to chance and our work to the purpose of others. This milieu prompted the philosopher Edmund Husserl to discuss it in his 1935 Vienna lecture, Philosophy and the Crisis of European Man, in which he concluded, Europe's greatest danger is weariness, a weariness caused by the sense of meaninglessness regarding our existence in a world that seems to have gotten us here by the accidents of nature. The very word, angst, the root of anxiety, was coined by the founder of existentialism, Soren Kierkegaard, in the early 19th century. The existential angst, sometimes called dread, associated with existentialism, is caused, according to Kierkegaard, from the initial feeling that we are born into a world of confusion and meaninglessness in an absurd world, like the isolated newborn in The Meaning of Life. The titles of two of his most influential books, Sickness unto Death and Fear and Trembling at Risk of Judging a Book by Its Cover, are enough to get at his idea that we can go through life feeling sick to death in response to the problem of our own existence, and that it is a problem that we must take serious enough to try resolving, as St. Paul said of salvation, with fear and trembling. It's a serious matter. In Sickness unto Death, he proposes that this lifelong sense of despair is largely caused by not fully becoming ourselves, who we are meant to be, whether we consider our unfulfilled meaning preordained by fatalistic forces or a matter of choice driven by our own passions. The first question Holocaust survivor and founder of logotherapy, Viktor Frankl, used to ask his new patients was, why don't you commit suicide? And this may sound like a rather callous way to begin therapy, but Frankl understood that our sense of personal meaning is so essential to our happiness that if we could answer this question, no matter what difficulties we have endured, no matter how much we now despair, no matter how anxious we feel, if we can answer this question, why then do we go on living? We might just discover the meaning of our lives, our reason for being, our reason for existing, our reason for living. As Nietzsche said, one who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. If we don't know our why, our reason for being, we may experience an existential crisis that feeling of angst a life without meaning leads to. But if you don't know it, or once knew it but feel it's changing and you're in need of discovering a new purpose in life, do not despair, if you can help it. For another existentialist philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, didn't believe any of us are born with a specific purpose. Rather, he believed the point of life is to discover our own sense of meaning. Unlike other prominent philosophers, from Plato 2,400 years ago to Martin Heidegger in the 20th century, who believed our essence is eternal and therefore precedes our existence, that our essence precedes our birth, if you will, Sartre believed the opposite, that we are first born, then discover, even create who we are to become. Life cannot be anything until it is lived, he thought, but each individual must make sense of it. As Samuel Enoch Stump explains in his discussion of Sartre, to argue that we are victims of fate, of mysterious forces within us, of some grand passion, of heredity, is to be guilty of bad faith or of self-deception, of inauthenticity. So the atheist and empiricist among us need not reject the notion that we all must discover a sense of meaning in our lives because it sounds too fatalistic or mystical. The need for meaning is part of what it means to be human. It is part of the human condition. And this is not to say that our individual sense of meaning isn't born inwardly of mysterious forces, grand passion, or heredity. There are plenty of thinkers who have soundly argued in favor of essence before existence. That we are born into this world accompanied by a daemon, a guardian spirit of sorts that guides us toward our inner destiny, just as the tiny acorn contains everything within itself to become a mighty oak. Even if it were able to think for itself and declare itself free, it would not have any choice but to become an oak tree and nothing else. It could not decide to become a cypress or a fern or a squirrel that buries acorns. It remains destined to become an oak. These different philosophical views are part of what makes the question of meaning a perennial problem. Yet all would agree it is a problem that each of us must respond to, no matter what we believe about the source of our meaning. whether we came into this world with it or it is a choice we make within this world. My favorite response, as those who know me well will have guessed, comes from social psychologist Erich Fromm, whom philosophy also claims to be a prominent humanistic philosopher. If, as mentioned earlier, eudaimonia is best understood to mean flourishing, then Fromm's humanistic ethic may be the best avenue toward finding meaning and happiness. It is based on the principle, you will recall, he said, that the unfolding and growth of every person should be the aim of all social and political activities. The unfolding and growth of every person should be the aim of all social and political activities. Unfolding, growth, flourishing. Conjure up images of seeds growing into flowers and eventually blossoming. Fromm came to this idea not because he necessarily believed each of us is born with a predetermined destiny, or because we are free to choose our own path. He resolved the problem of uncertainty that this perennial problem presents by arguing that since we are humans, our ethics should be based on the principle that what is what is good for humanity, and evil is what is detrimental to humanity. The sole criterion of ethical value being human welfare. In other words, we don't need to know ultimate meaning or understand ethics with absolute certainty, which is not possible. Rather, as humans, it is reasonable to adopt an ethic that serves humanity, including the proper care and respect for the environment and fellow creatures we depend upon. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, like many philosophers, believed that humans are fundamentally social animals, and that to follow our own nature, our own human nature, means we must care for the well-being of others. Like Fromm, he believed that human nature leads to the humanistic ethic. As Donald Robertson says in his recent book on Marcus, rational beings are inherently social, designed to live in communities and to help one another in a spirit of goodwill. As such, we have a duty to live wisely and harmoniously with our fellow humans in order to fulfill our natural potential and to flourish. That's that word again, flourish, eudaimonia. And within eudaimonia is the daemon, the guardian of our destiny, which has something to do with the welfare of others. This may not help us arrive at our own specific meaning, but it contains an important truth, that none of us can truly be content in our life if our individual pursuits cause others, to suffer or prevent them from realizing their own purposes. As human beings, whatever our source of meaning, it must serve humanity in some way, because that is our nature. We cannot truly flourish if by doing so we cause others to wilt. As human beings, we are all tied in a single garment of destiny, as Dr. King said. So whether your meaning is derived from art, or music, or engineering, or science, or teaching, or medicine, or law, or gardening, or writing, or politics, or something else, within the myriad of meaningful possibilities, it is unlikely that any of it will be meaningful unless it genuinely promotes human welfare and individual unfolding, individual flourishing. If, on the contrary, one finds meaning in harming and controlling others, which some seem to do, I won't mention any names of any individuals who hopefully is on a short leash. Beneath that need to control and harm others lies a meaningless existence. Again, as Marcus said, ignoring our fellowship with others is a form of injustice, a vice, and an impiety because it goes against nature. So fulfilling our social nature as human beings must be intertwined with our life's meaning. Another quality of such meaning, whatever its particulars, is, according to Fromm, that there is no meaning to life except the meaning you give to your life by the unfolding of your powers. By the unfolding of your powers. That is to say, our meaning, though it must result in the flourishing of society and of others, cannot be based upon the authority of others. This again is the very reason existentialism emerged in the first place, to resolve the general sense of meaninglessness caused by the industrialization of labor and the subsequent dehumanization of humans. It may very well be that some find great meaning in industrial labor and enjoy such service to humanity, knowing they are helping to manufacture goods and services that benefit thousands, maybe millions. But others may feel that they are only working out of necessity for a paycheck, but are miserable because there is no meaning in it for them. Their purpose, the meaning of their lives, has then been defined for them by the needs and desires of others. They have become someone else's end. The same can be true of overbearing parents, no matter how well-meaning, who try to force their children to achieve meaning in the things that are not their own. Athletics, academics, a college degree in a high-paying and unrewarding field, joining the military, and so forth. As an adult, it may take years, if ever, to break free of these impositions, to discover one's own authentic meaning. Religion and other ideologies can be equally as oppressive inasmuch as they are not truly our own, but are taught and given to us. That which gives us meaning must emerge from our own agency as autonomous, free-thinking individuals. I've already mentioned the signs of anxiety, despair, and angst may suggest it's time to examine or re-examine the meaning of our lives. Fromm gives us another indicator by suggesting the opposite of meaning is actually boredom. I am convinced that boredom is one of the greatest tortures, he says. If I were to imagine hell, it would be the place where you were continually bored. And he wasn't referring to an occasional need to yawn while wishing we were somewhere doing something else, but the chronic state of meaninglessness, to the overwhelming sense that there's something major missing from our lives, something better we should be doing with it. If meaning comes with the unfolding of our own powers, then boredom, Fromm says, is nothing but the experience of a paralysis of our productive powers. So becoming productive in a way of our own choosing is another necessity in combating the boredom of a meaningless life, discovering our meaning. Philosopher Lou Marinoff, who agrees with Fromm that man is the only animal that is bored, or that can be bored, says the common loss of purpose is simply boredom. I've been using meaning and purpose synonymously, as Viktor Frankl, and I think most of us do, but Marinoff makes a distinction between them that I think is worthy of pointing out. Marinoff, who calls personal pointlessness a plague of the 20th century, and since his book was written in 1999 on the cusp of the 21st, we can infer this century too, compares this difference to a restaurant menu. Its purpose is to help a patron choose something to eat, Its meaning is to provide those choices. Confusing meaning with purpose, according to Marinoff, would be like eating the menu. Likewise, a map has meaning because it can guide us toward our destination, but our purpose is not to trace our route on a drawing, but to actually get there. The menu is not the meal, he says. The map is not the territory. I still prefer to use meaning and purpose interchangeably, as most of us do, understanding that meaning is the overarching problem of our existence, as Frankl did, which is why I think understanding Marinoff's point becomes essential. The most accurate map in the world is useless if you aren't going anywhere, he says. The most accurate map in the world is useless if you're not going anywhere. In other words, there's a difference in knowing the meaning of life and actually pursuing it. Just as there is a difference in reading a menu and choosing a dish or reading a map and taking a trip. Some of us are searching for our meaning, and some of us know where we want to go, but aren't doing anything to get there, both of which leave us spinning our wheels. Boredom. Boredom means being stuck, either because we don't know which direction to take, because we are without meaning, or because we know but don't dare take the journey by pursuing our own purpose. Maybe we're afraid of change. Maybe we're dependent on our boring jobs to make a living and can't risk leaving to pursue our own ends. Maybe we know our purpose and long to pursue it, but can't because social and economic circumstances don't afford us the opportunities we need to do so. Maybe someone's got their knee on our neck. Maybe we know our purpose, but still have no meaning, no understanding, no map or menu telling us how to get there. Any of these can work to prevent us from leading a life worth living. Perhaps the first step in figuring out what's holding us back is to answer that question. What's holding us back? Then begin tackling that issue, which itself can be meaningful because doing so becomes part of the journey. Tackling the problem is part of the journey. Getting a degree or retraining or certification isn't the same as fulfilling our purpose, but it may be part of the journey getting there, which makes it meaningful. Finally, I'll leave you with the method of finding our purpose used in the Japanese philosophy of ikigai, a word that equates happiness with leading an active and productive life. To help figure out your purpose, on a piece of paper, draw 4 interlocking circles with a common space in their core. In one quadrant, I'm going to repeat these, so don't worry. Get a pen and piece of paper if you want. So in one quadrant, write the answer to the question, what do you love? What do you love? In another, what are you good at? What are you good at? In another, what does the world need? There's that social piece. What does the world need? And in the final circle, what can you be paid for? Some would say that if you simply answer the first 3 questions, the money will follow. But the Japanese are a practical people and understand making a living is an essential part of living and rightly include it in the equation. So those questions again. What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for? Where they intersect, in that intersection, you will find your ikigai, your purpose. It's a simple, though very beneficial exercise. A sense of meaning, which seems so fundamental to life, is yet a perennial problem, a philosophical question few of us ask ourselves often enough. Some of us are satisfied to serve as someone else's end, to adopt their purposes as our own. But deep down, we all need to pursue our own purpose under our own autonomous power to experience a life worth living. Bing!
Well, since we have no TV words behind us today, I chose one of the simplest and most well-known hymns today, but I really think it fits Todd's sermon too, Spirit of Life. So, since we have no words on a screen, you will have to listen to your heart to remember these words. If you trip on one, no problem. We're going to sing it twice, and if you choose to just listen the first time, that's fine, but I would urge you to jump right in with me both times to sing this wonderful affirmation that we have in our hymnal. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me, Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
For our benediction, I offer the words of Richard Feynman. Physics isn't the most important thing. Love is. The highest forms of understanding we can achieve are laughter and compassion. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.